Hi guys, it's Jen. We wanted to do a recap video from the last couple weeks to discuss a few things that we are seeing. I hope you guys are all having a great weekend. Thank you for getting everything in and for being on the discussions a lot this past week. We really enjoyed watching your foot in the mouth videos. There were so many examples that you had similar experiences with other people, and it was really nice to see how a lot of it could translate into child life settings and things that you learned from those experiences. So thank you for sharing that with us. We have also looked at your group work, and I know Chelsea sent emails with the grading system and what the grades were for that. We felt that for the first time around, you guys did a really good job picking out the pertinent information in those chart notes. So good job there. As you can see, we are reading through your discussions and your reflections. We're plus oneing it as we go, and you'll see that we comment here and there on them. We feel like sometimes the discussions are going so well that we don't necessarily need to add to it. And then other things we feel like would be better just as an overall recap. So with that, as far as the reflections of this week, watching the video and writing 4 to 5 sentences for the assessment, what we are seeing and finding with the majority of you is that you're trying to recap the entire scenario in 4 to 5 sentences as opposed to just the assessment. So I want to encourage you guys to go back and look at the API notes document that's on week 3 to review what part is actually supposed to be in the assessment. We are also going to upload a sample chart note just for the assessment portion of what it would look like in this scenario. So you should be looking for that in the next day or two as well. As far as API notes, with that, the assessment portion being just the beginning, you would have 3 more sections of the note to actually complete the entire chart note and the scenario that you were seeing. So for those of you that felt like it was very difficult to do in 4 to 5 sentences, for an entire chart note, that would be really difficult. But just for the assessment portion, you should be able to find that going back and reviewing the assessment piece, that 4 to 5 sentences is enough to get out the assessment portion for the chart note, and then the interventions and the evaluation are going to come later during that chart note. So the chart note's actually a lot longer than just the initial assessment. And again, we'll be posting an example of that on to the community. As far as writing verbatim, it is a great skill to learn. It is a great thing to do once in a while where you can really see if you can remember and pick out the important information and quotes that are said during a situation. So it's a great skill to use during charting. However, chart notes for the most part are not written in verbatim. It's just a way to have you start to recognize what portions of what you're assessing and seeing should be included in your chart notes. So there are times that you do add quotes and you do add exactly what has occurred, but it's not a screenplay where it's nurse said this, patient said this. When you do verbatim, it is written like that, but when you're actually translating it to a chart note for the purposes of child life, it is not written in an actual verbatim or screenplay like scenario. So just to clear that up, if you have any questions about that, the idea behind learning verbatim is that you can then look for key phrases and information that is really important to include in your actual chart note. I want to go back to the video from this week. It was very interesting to read through everyone's reactions and verbatim and reflections, and about half of you thought there was a child life specialist in the room, half of you didn't think that or didn't mention that. So I want to kind of go back and have you guys think about why you thought there was a child life specialist there. Upon my watching it, and I think Chelsea, we both felt there was not a child life specialist there. It seemed to me that there was a mother and father or a male and female caregiver, a nurse, and then either another nurse or maybe a nursing assistant that was there. A few of you pointed out the staff member that you thought maybe was child life, but when looking at her, she had a stethoscope around her neck. which would not be something Child Life would typically do. And she also helped with the procedure in holding his arm. And again, that's typically not something that Child Life would be part of. So if you have a chance to go back and view the video one more time, see if you think there's 4 people in the room and the child, or if there's actually another person somewhere in the room talking, or if you maybe were mistaken about somebody else being there. So it was interesting to see that people had different points of view there as well. For those of you that didn't think Child Life was there, we'd be interested to see and have you think about how Child Life could have helped in this situation. For us watching this video, a few things came to mind. For us, I didn't think there was a Child Life specialist in the room. I also felt like there was a lot of people talking and speaking at the same time, and it was causing a little bit of anxiety for me in watching the scenario. I find that sometimes when there's not somebody taking the lead in a room or a procedure, that it can cause more anxiety and kind of more confusion for the patient and the members in the room, because people are saying different things. Some people are contradicting people, and it can be overwhelming. So there are some places that have kind of policies or, encourage in procedures that there's a kind of a one voice and one person that takes the lead on speaking, and that everyone else is kind of quiet during it, because you could hear a lot of things. As far as the child, in looking at it, it appeared he coped very well during the procedure. While he did cry some, crying is not always a sign that a child's not coping. A child can be coping by crying, but what was important here was that the things that he was asked to do, he did. He was staying still. He was engaged. He interacted during the procedure. He was able to advocate for himself for things that were important to him, and he recovered very quickly, kind of back to his baseline during when the procedure was over. So again, sometimes during procedures, you're going to be saying, you can cry, you can scream, you can do whatever you need to, as long as you can try to remain still. And that's okay for some children. That's how they need to cope. As far as the caregivers in this picture, there were certain phrases where they were associating his behavior with being a good boy, or saying things like, "You're all done," when in reality he has a whole nother part of the procedure. And those are things as a Child Life specialist you can help to kind of encourage different wording, or different phrases that you can help him to remind him kind of what the next step is, and also that even if he moves or kicks or something, it's not that he's not a good boy. So there are ways to work with the parents on wording, or also to, if you're in the room, to kind of encourage him through different wording. And help him not to feel as anxious or feel like he's done something wrong. And then lastly, in chart notes, if you are going to be writing that a patient is nervous or a patient is upset, you need to be able to explain why. So does the patient appear nervous as seen by, et cetera, et cetera. But giving that back up in those examples and those concrete examples of why you're assessing it that way. So that way it doesn't come across as an opinion or a judgment on your part, and that you can explain your professional assessment of the situation. So I hope you guys have a great weekend. Look out for the chart note being uploaded just as an example of the assessment portion. And if you have an opportunity, I would encourage you to kind of go back and see if you can do a 4 to 5 sentence assessment piece, as opposed to some that was posted, just to get a feel for what the assessment portion would look like when you're looking at this situation. Hope you guys have a great weekend, and we will see you this week.